It was supposed to be an ordinary morning. Sunlight spilled across the porch, children laughing, coffee brewing. Just another peaceful day in a quiet southern town. But before noon, a folded letter on the front door would turn that peace into panic. Within days, Malik and his family would be forced to pack everything they owned. Not because of crime or debt or wrongdoing, but because of something far quieter, far uglier. They were being erased from their own home. But what came next? No one in that neighborhood could have ever imagined. The morning light poured through the blinds of a small rental home on the edge of Willow Creek, a quiet southern town where the streets curved like old memories. Malik sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee from a chipped mug, the faint hum of gospel radio playing in the background. His wife folded laundry nearby, the scent of detergent mixing with the smell of toast, while their two kids chased each other through the living room, barefoot, laughing, free. For them, life was simple. For Malik, it was built on borrowed peace. Every Saturday followed the same rhythm. He'd mow the patch of grass out front, patch the steps with a careful hand, and fix whatever the landlord hadn't gotten around to. He took pride in small things: the fence line, the garden, the porch light that flickered every other night, but still refused to die. It wasn't perfect, but it was home, a place he'd worked years to afford, even if he didn't own it. The neighbors waved politely, though some smiles stopped short of warmth. The new ones across the street barely nodded at all. Malik didn't take it personally. He'd grown used to that kind of silence, the kind that said, "You're welcome here, but not too much." Still, he believed in staying decent, even when decency wasn't returned. That morning, as sunlight stretched over the mailbox and the children's laughter echoed across the porch, Malik didn't notice the dark sedan slowing at the curb. The driver leaned out just long enough to snap a picture of the house before pulling away. It seemed unimportant at the time, just another car passing through town. But by the following week, that moment would mark the beginning of everything changing. It started with a note, folded, plain, slipped between the screen door and the frame. Malik found it on a Tuesday morning, right before heading to work. Inspection scheduled. Thursday, 9:00 a.m. No signature, no explanation. Just the kind of message that carried more command than courtesy. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe the landlord wanted to check the gutters or the plumbing again. It wasn't the first time someone came by unannounced. But Thursday came, and it wasn't the landlord who showed up. It was a man in khakis and a pressed white shirt, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp behind reflective sunglasses. He didn't greet Malik, just walked the perimeter, snapping photos of the porch, the fence, even the inside through the open door. Malik asked what this was about. The man didn't answer, just said, "Property review," and left. That evening, Malik sat on the porch, his wife beside him, the paper still in his hand. She looked uneasy. "You think it's about us?" He didn't answer, but the question lingered long after sunset. The next morning, another letter arrived, this time in bold red ink. Lease violation, unauthorized modifications to property. Final notice before eviction. Malik stared at the page in disbelief. The modifications they mentioned were repairs he'd done himself. Fixing leaks, replacing cracked tiles, repainting the porch railing after months of neglect. The landlord had never complained before. But when Malik called to clarify, the tone on the other end had changed. "Look, the neighborhood's changing," the landlord said flatly. "We've had concerns about the property's appearance. Some residents feel uncomfortable." That word, uncomfortable. Malik had heard it all his life. It never meant noise or crime or trouble. It meant you. By the weekend, the letters turned into threats. Eviction proceedings will begin Monday. He tried reasoning with them, offered to meet, to show receipts, to explain. But every call ended the same: silence or the line cutting off. Then came the car again, the same dark sedan he'd noticed that morning. It parked across the street this time, engine idling for a while before driving off. The next day, someone sprayed over his mailbox number with white paint. His kids came inside confused. "Dad, did someone mess with our house?" He said no, but his eyes told the truth. Word spread fast through the neighborhood, though no one said anything directly. A few neighbors stopped waving altogether. Others left notes that read, "Hope things work out." The same people who once borrowed his tools now avoided eye contact. On Sunday, a final envelope arrived. This one taped to the door. Eviction notice. "You have 7 days to vacate the property." His wife read it twice, voice trembling. "Where do we even go?" Malik stood quiet, the sunlight pouring across the living room walls, illuminating framed photos of birthdays and first days of school. It wasn't just a home. They were erasing a chapter of their life. He packed boxes that night, but his mind wasn't on what they were losing. It was on why. And deep down, he knew this wasn't about money, or maintenance, or policy. It was about presence, about who people think belongs and who doesn't. As he taped the last box shut, a car door slammed outside. He looked through the window. The landlord stood by the curb, clipboard in hand, watching. Not speaking, just watching. And in that silence, Malik realized this wasn't the end of something. It was the start of a reckoning. The morning of the eviction was too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels staged, like the air itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Malik stood on the porch, a box in each hand, his family behind him. The moving truck hadn't arrived yet, just their things scattered in cardboard and plastic bins, fragments of a life that no longer fit anywhere. Across the street, blinds shifted. Neighbors were watching again. The same faces that had smiled at block parties, now peering out like spectators at a parade they didn't want to be caught enjoying. The landlord arrived first. He parked his shiny silver car right in front of the house, stepping out with a clipboard and sunglasses that reflected the whole scene back at Malik. Him, his wife, his children, their world packed into boxes. Behind the landlord came 2 deputies, quiet, professional, but distant. They weren't there for justice, just a job. Malik tried to stay composed. "You didn't have to do it like this," he said. The landlord didn't look at him. "You were warned." That phrase cut deeper than it should have. Warned. As if being black and present in this neighborhood was a violation waiting to happen. One of the deputies cleared his throat. "Sir, you'll need to vacate now." Malik nodded slowly. His wife held the youngest child close, whispering prayers under her breath. Their daughter wiped away tears she didn't want anyone to see. He took one last look inside, the wall where his kids had marked their heights, the window that caught the morning light just right. It was more than losing a house. It was losing the illusion that fairness still meant something. As he stepped off the porch, a car pulled up, an older black man in a faded blue truck. The man leaned out and said, "Brother, I think you should hear what's happening downtown." Malik frowned. "What do you mean?" The man's eyes held something between warning and opportunity. "They're starting something new. Something that might change everything." Malik didn't know it yet, but this wasn't the end. It was the door he was meant to walk through, the one no landlord could ever lock again. 3 months after the eviction, the small rental house on Willow Creek sat empty. The grass had grown wild, the paint chipped, and the blinds stayed shut. The landlord had put up a "for lease" sign again, but no one wanted it now. It wasn't cursed. It was exposed. Malik and his family had moved to the other side of town, a worn but sturdy neighborhood called Eastwood Heights. The rent was lower, the homes older, but the people? They were real. Neighbors waved from porches. Kids played in the street until sunset. And when Malik fixed someone's leaky faucet, they brought food instead of silence. But something in him had shifted. He couldn't forget that morning. That clipboard, that word, uncomfortable. It became the spark that refused to go out. With the help of a few friends from his church and a local housing advocate, Malik started something small, a weekend project to restore abandoned homes in Eastwood. It began with just one house, then another. Within a year, the first property they repaired became a shelter for displaced families, a safe space for those who'd been told they didn't belong. Reporters later called it the house that hope built. But for Malik, it was never about headlines. It was about redemption, turning humiliation into healing, and proving that ownership isn't about walls or deeds. It's about dignity. One afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the newly painted front porch, his daughter placed a small plaque by the steps. It read, "We were once evicted from a house. Now, we build them." Malik stood there quietly, his hand on her shoulder, the same daylight that once witnessed their loss now shining on their victory, because racism tried to take their home, but it only helped them build a legacy. So the next time someone's peace is threatened by prejudice or power, ask yourself, what if the very door they tried to close on you was the one leading to your purpose? Don't miss more powerful real-life stories. Hit subscribe now.